Hello, and thanks everyone for joining Zatigo's Identity First Security Summit, first of many to come. Today we will be covering how to get started selling website security. My name is David Mason, and I'm the Director of Channel Partner Success here at SciLab. With that, what we'll be covering is the cybersecurity landscape. We'll take a look at the customer's need for a trusted advisor, discuss why SiteLock, dive into how to really get started selling website security, going over a few go-to-market strategies within that, and then take a look at some of the best practices that we've gained from working with various partners just like yourself. So let's talk about the cybersecurity landscape. Some of the things we've found in our data with SiteLock and some of the things we've noticed, as I'm sure you have as well too, that more and more small and medium businesses are becoming heavily reliant on their online services and their web presence as a lifeline for almost everything. Especially with the rise of COVID, they're no longer leaning to their brick and mortar first. It's now about their online presence. Unfortunately, with that reliance, creates a greater opportunity for those cyber criminals. Some of the data we've seen is 172 attacks per site per day on average, working out to about 8 attacks every 15 minutes is what the average website's facing. With that, we're estimating that there are roughly about 4.1 million sites currently infected with malware worldwide. So what does that mean though when we're looking at that opportunity? One of the things we notice is that the cybersecurity industry particularly is in a period of hyper growth, estimated to be over 403 billion by 2027. I think we've seen IT professionals preparing more than ever, believing more than 3/4 that a successful cyber attack is going to happen against their business imminently in 2022. Undetected cyber threats are on the rise, right? That's the main goal of these bad actors, and most malware is to actually infect those websites, but not get discovered, right? It makes it easier for them to replicate and spread. Cybersecurity attacks are definitely costly for your customers. 1.9 million on average spend. Of course, when you think about that, you're lumping in a lot of those Fortune 500s at the top. That's obviously a more expensive hit, but even breaking that down to a small SMB, even a $5,000 bill could be the majority of their web present budget for the year, if not beyond that, right? Creating a heavy burden on those customers. And ransomware, because it's so public and so out there, remains a number one growing concern. 89% of partners agreeing it's the most common threat to SMBs. So definitely an awareness, a large opportunity within the space. What does that mean as far as the impact for your customer? And I think it is the case, and I think that line at the bottom says it all. Cyber attacks are no longer a matter of if, but when. And then what is that damage going to do? Between the costly data breaches, damage to reputation, and lost revenue to a SMB, a small business, that could mean them going out of business within that first year. I believe I've seen some stats out there that it's more than 50% that experience a cyber attack, especially one that leads to any sort of data breach, are going out of business within that first year. And when you think about that and you think about what those customers spend and budget are, what they'll have to spend to repair that or build back that reputation likely is more than double, if not triple, what the budget is they spent for their entire web presence, becoming very, very costly and detrimental to those businesses. So let's talk a little bit about the need for a trusted advisor and what that means for you, the partner. The role of the trusted advisor, and I think this is a goal, at least for a lot of the partners we talk to, and a lot of those, including ourselves, is what we're trying to move to, more than just a vendor or more than just a spot where someone goes and buys hosting, right? We want to be that trusted advisor, that person that's leaned on by those end users to make sure they have everything they need for their web presence. And some of those key things those end users are looking for are the ability to provide guidance and advice in a number of areas. Instill confidence and trust. They are the expert, right? You want your supplier, you want your trusted advisor to be the expert in all those areas, so you can just rely on their industry knowledge and expertise. A focus on the unique needs of the customers, knowing your customer base and what those needs are, and then offering a comprehensive portfolio of security solutions. I would argue that it also goes beyond that as well too. More and more, we're seeing end users looking for those one-stop shops. They don't want to have to figure it out on their own. They want to rely on somebody to be that expert and say, hey, here's what you're trying to do. These are the type of solutions you need to achieve that. So what is that first step in becoming that trusted advisor? At least from a security standpoint, it starts with auditing your portfolio. I think a lot of hosts, a lot of MSPs, a lot of vendors out there, they're offering certain common security solutions, SSL being one of those, spam filter and backup. It's taking a look at what are the areas you're missing. This is not a comprehensive list. I think this at least gets you thinking about is, what am I missing? Automated malware scanning and remediation tools, web application firewalls, vulnerability patching services, premium DNS, content delivery network. You can go VPN. You could go on and on here on the various things. It's also about cultivating that list to, okay, now matching that up to what my customer needs are. So why SciLab? Where can we help you kind of solve this and take yourself to that trusted advisor role? So our mission at SciLab is to protect and optimize every website on the internet. We've been doing this since 2008. We're trusted by over 16 million customers and 1,400 partners worldwide. I think that's important to keep in mind. With those 16 million active websites we're scanning daily, it does give us a unique perspective on the industry. It has allowed us to cultivate one of the largest database of no malware hashes. So there's the hash database that all different security vendors rely on that are public out there. We have access to those, and then we have our own that we cultivated as well. What that really means to the end user, what that really means to you, the partner, is not only do we have a large database, but it means we're able to find more faster, right? Find it before you've experienced that customer's experienced business disruption. So I think that's important there. You can take a look at some of the various things we've done. 8 million threats blocked daily, 83 million lines of source code file analyzed daily. We're consuming and analyzing and scanning a lot of data that's allowed us to pivot, create some unique solutions that really fit the need of that small, medium-sized business. And we're able to arm you with those tools so that you're able to offer the most comprehensive solution to your end users. So let's just take a little bit, and I really like this slide. I really think it's important, especially that section on the left. And I think many of you are doing a good job with that bottom gray and a lot of that blue part. You have solutions, you have tools in place to help protect your infrastructure, create a clean infrastructure for your client. I think the part that's interesting in the green field is that top green area, right? That's where your end users are going in. They're building their website. They may be using an open source tool like a WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, self-building. They're adding all these variable plugins, various tools to make their website experience as usable as possible, but they're also introducing backdoors and risk into not only their own infrastructure, but yours as well. And this is an area where we can help not only you as the hosting or solution provider, but also your end user. And you kind of see where our solution sets stack right on top of there. And I think this is a good way to think about it, is there is no one size fits all. There's a certain amount of security tools you need to have in place as the provider. And then there's the tools your end user needs to have in place to help protect themselves as well. Anything from malware removal to web application firewalls, called content delivery networks. And I think it's important when we think web application firewall and we think content delivery network, we're talking at the application level, not at the appliance level. A lot of times as a host, you have those solutions at your appliance level. This is protecting those at the application level as well too. So when we think about product offerings at SciLab, we have cultivated these from what we've seen most effective with the partners we're offering through. I'm going to start over there with our SiteLock risk score. This is one of our unique programs I'll get into in a little bit later, and then I have a separate talk that also goes over this as well. on how you can really leverage that to drive into these other product and conversions. And then we've kind of created a flavor for each and every one of your clients as they go through their journey, as they evolve in their website from basic pro to business, with those base level malware remediation and scanning tools. Each one builds on the next, adding in things like platform patching, web application firewall CDN, custom web application solutions and settings for those that need it. And then I believe anywhere where if you're in the industry, you need a standalone emergency repair solution for that person that has that hair on fire, just needs a solution, and that's what we have in 911. A little bit of sneak peek that will be talked about later is looking at something we're doing with Citigo since they acquired SiteLock, and kind of taking this SiteLock product set, at least from the risk score side, and marrying that to an SSL, and how that can be another entry point or another touch point for your clients with that SSL plus SiteLock, with some of the things that come along with that. That will also be another track within this summit. That's definitely worth a listen to get a little bit more details on how you can leverage that as well. So now to the meat, how do you get started selling SiteLock security? And what we mean here is not necessarily how do you sign up with SiteLock, but how do you actually look at your client base, and how do you actually sell security through, not just adding it to a page on a standalone landing page, but looking at some strategies to actually gain traction, gain upsell through. And what we're going to do is look at your customer base in two segments across your existing client base. And then we're going to look at some strategies for your net new client base, because I think it is important to look at those two segments and how you can maximize value and drive sales from both. So with that, let's take a look at some primary strategies around the existing client base. And what we found the most effective to be is by leveraging that SiteLock Lite, that site license program, and extending it to all your existing client base, both hosting and domain only clients. I'll cover the domain only clients a little further. By extending this site license to your existing base, you're arming each one of those customers with a alarm system, an education tool, to try and move them from a very reactionary client to a very proactive client. This site license is going to provide them education on what their security profile looks like. It's also going to serve as an early alarm system, as it is going to scan to determine if they have malware or vulnerabilities and alert them, thus driving them back into your funnel. And additionally, it's going to provide them a predictive risk score based on their site's profile. What is the likelihood that they're going to experience an imminent cyber attack, broken down into a very easy way to understand that? So let's go ahead and look at that risk score, right? And how it works. So what the risk score is going to do is it's going to scan the site, and it's going to look at the site's complexity, composition, and popularity over 500 different variables, and assign it a score, low, medium, or high. This is going to signal to the client where they land on that risk profile and what kind of security solutions they're going to need to think about putting into place. The idea here is not actually to look at it and say, hey, you're high risk, put these solutions in place and it's automatically going to lower your risk. Because there may be situations where what's driving their risk is not necessarily tied to any one vulnerability, but also the popularity and complexity of their site, where they're opening it equated to opening a business on a busy road. You're on a busy road, a high profile area, you're going to be visible. You're going to want to put a good alarm system and lock on your business to make sure it stays secured. The same idea here is making sure we match those security and say, hey, you're high risk, have these solutions, right? Here's what you should put in place. The secondary benefit of this is by providing this level of education to your client and trying to create that proactive relationship. If and when something does happen, you are able, and your CS team especially is able to lean back on, hey, we've been sending you those alerts and letting you know you are at high risk of something happening. This happened, don't worry, here's how we can help you. Versus the alternative where your CS team gets a call of, I've hosted with you, I ended blacklisted as Google, I've got malware. I thought you guys were protecting me, and that becoming a very long, very complex, and very costly call when you look at your call center stance, and something that can introduce potential churn. Sure. So how does the risk score build value? Let's dive into that a little bit more. We talked about how the customer gives insight into their risk profile, and it does go beyond just an idea of high, medium, low. As they go in, they're able to click into the dashboard. They are able to gain some understanding on here's what makes your risk score high. Here's some of the things you're doing. You have these plugins. You're running this out of date version of WordPress, right? Here's some things that you're doing that actually don't affect your risk score. Here's some things you're doing that are positively affecting your risk score. And here's some steps we suggest you take beyond just buy product A, right? Some actual steps you can take to protect yourself, right? For you, the partner, this gives you a good tool to identify which of those customers fall into that bucket and come up with a plan on how you mesh and communicate rather than just having a kind of shotgun approach of, hey, we've introduced CycleLock, we have these security solutions, you should come buy them, here's some base level details on what they are. Being able to be more surgical about that and say, hey, you are a high risk customer, here's some data around what that means for you and the potential impact, here's some steps to protect yourself. It also allows you to create an inbound motion, but also create outbound lead lists for those sales teams, for those of you that do have those call centers, and reach out and be proactive yourself rather than just relying on the client to be proactive, especially if any of those sites trigger as malware infected. Just put yourself in the position you're that small, medium business, and your hosting provider, your vendor calls you up and say, hey, our scanner detected you were actually malware infected, and being able to have that conversation with them before they experienced that business disruption, before they got blacklisted by Google. The amount of credibility that builds into that trusted advisor role in your brand just becomes that much more in that customer's eyes and allows you to further them along their customer journey, increase that average revenue per unit across each one of those customers. Just some secondary GTM strategies outside of leveraging risk score, especially across the existing client base. Most of you do a good job of these with every other product you sell, but just to reiterate, making sure we're offering it in that control panel, looking at additional add-on opportunities like we alluded to with the SSL, but there's additional bundled security solutions you can do, the product standalone page, and for those agencies, MSPs out there that are offering a maintenance plan, this is a good complement and add on to that, as it is able to add some additional value in those maintenance plans and help you maintain a high renewal rate on those. So I'm going to dive in a little bit into a hosting provider go-to-market strategy. This is for net new clients. It happens to be the largest area that SciLab has coverage in, so it's an area we're very familiar with. We do work with a lot of other types of companies, whether that's VARs, MSPs, distributors, that we have some different go-to-market strategies, but just looking at this one, first and foremost, opportunity to bundle those solutions in. Fits really well with your hosting, just having it included, whether that's just a basic plan or even at the very least, you've extended it to all your existing clients, making sure you're extending a site license to those net new clients as well. Opt out tends to be an effective strategy. It's not one that can be deployed easily in Europe because of some rules there, but in the US, it is one that works. And what we've seen on average of customers doing that is about a 35% attach rate, which tends to be very good. Next, going down the line, especially for those European clients, this is the reverse, looking at an opt-in when you're not doing bundling. The attach rate is not quite as high as the opt-out. A lot of that has to do with how you position and message that risk score, right? For those net new, especially those that don't purchase a paid product, making sure you're implementing the same strategy you would for your existing, for your net new. As they go through the funnel, they don't have a paid product, you attach that risk score and you put them through that wash machine of that lead gen, that education, trying to turn them into that proactive customer. Looking for any add-on opportunities you have, same as with existing, offering in your control panel and then having a strong landing page. So what are the best practices we've seen work? So best practices for selling SiteLock, making sure we're covering all customers, not just hosting, but non-hosting customers as well. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but those domain-only customers, this tends to be an effective messaging route to them. You've reached out to them, told them their domain was up for renewal, EPP keys, the who is information, maybe some light marketing stuff, being able to go with a message and say, as your trusted domain provider, we take your cybersecurity very seriously. Here's some information about your risk profile, and then being able to package that with some sort of messaging around it and offer to move their hosting or whatever it may be. We've seen that very effective. Um, Again, it's using that risk score to educate, right? It's a tool to make sure your end user understands their risk posture. Security is very difficult. There's a lot of tools. So the more we can educate them and make them aware of what their risk profile is, the more proactive we can make them. And if we're asking the customer to be proactive, making sure you're being proactive as a partner and you're sending those risk alerts. For those that do have a call team, you're creating those touch points with your call team to reach out, especially to those that are malware affected. And then keeping a cadence, right? You've seen us talk about being proactive. You've seen alerts, emails that can be death by 1,000 cuts. We've got some recommendations on proper email cadence to make sure we're not providing email fatigue for those end users, right? It's very important to have a strong schedule to make sure they're reading, understanding, and comprehending those alert messages so they take proper action. Just in closing, in summary, cybersecurity market's hot and growing, presents a massive revenue opportunity. It's important as a solution provider to be a trusted advisor, not just a vendor. When you're a trusted advisor, that churn is lower, the stickiness is better. They're coming back to you looking for, hey, what should I be doing? Rather than just an outlet and price shopping, quite frankly. Making sure you're offering a comprehensive portfolio that makes sense for your client base. There's a lot of various solutions out there, and not all of them may make sense for what your customers are doing. We can take a look at that with you and help making sure we're tailoring that down. Just as we can have email fatigue, we can have product fatigue and package fatigue. So it's very important that we have ones that make sense for your client base without overwhelming them. Making sure we're leveraging the right go-to-market strategy. We covered various things in there. There's ways to customize all those to make sure it fits with your client base. And most importantly, for those of you on the phone, make sure you ask us for help and reach out to us. And we can kind of review what you're doing, what your business goals are, and match that up to a solution that makes sense for what you're doing and a go-to-market strategy for what you're doing. So thank you for joining. If you have any questions, my contact information is on there, but I also encourage you to use the Speak to Us section on the lower part of your screen. That will get you directly connected with us. We have people waiting for those to go ahead and answer any additional questions you have. But you can also email me directly or anyone from the channel team at partnerships@sitelock.com. Thank you for your time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the Cetigo Identity First Security Summit.